Name your price, the woman said, her voice sharp with disbelief. Nobody fixes a vintage Bronco on the side of a mountain road and walks away from $1 million. Nathan Brooks tightened the last clamp beneath the hood and lowered it gently. The late afternoon wind rolled down from the Montana foothills, carrying the scent of pine and sun-warmed earth across the narrow two-lane highway. A few miles away, storm clouds gathered over the distant ridgeline, turning the sky the color of old steel. He wiped his hands on a shop rag and stepped back from the vehicle. "Looks like your fuel line came loose," he said. "You should make it into town just fine." The woman stared at him as if he had answered the wrong question. Her tailored navy jacket probably cost more than the pickup truck parked behind him, yet for the first time all day, she looked uncertain. "I offered you $1 million. Nathan shrugged. "Then you offered too much." Something flickered across her face. Not anger. Not embarrassment. Confusion. As if no one had ever refused her before. A gust of wind rattled the dry grass along the shoulder. Nathan glanced down at the old Timex watch resting beneath his sleeve. The hands never moved. They always pointed to 8:17. He pulled the cuff lower before she could notice. "Wait," she called as he turned away. "At least tell me your name." He hesitated. Just long enough for the silence to feel heavier than it should have. "Nathan." Then he climbed into his faded Ford F-150 and drove away. Claire Whitmore stood beside the Bronco, watching the truck disappear around the bend. The name meant nothing to her. The feeling it left behind did. By the time Nathan reached Brooks Auto Repair outside Bozeman, the first drops of rain tapped against the windshield. The garage sat beside a weathered grain elevator and a diner that had been serving pies since before he was born. Warm yellow light spilled from the office windows. As soon as he stepped inside, a small blur launched herself at him. "Daddy!" Lily Brooks wrapped her arms around his waist. "You're late. Only by 10 minutes. That's still late." He smiled despite himself. She held up a sketchbook covered in stickers. "Look what I drew." Nathan crouched beside her. 3 figures stood beneath a giant cotton candy sunset. A little girl. A man. And a woman with long brown hair. His smile faded for half a second. Just half a second. Lily noticed anyway. Children always did. "I know Mom's hair was lighter," she said softly. "I just forgot." Nathan swallowed. Rain drummed harder against the metal roof. "It's a good drawing, kiddo." Lily seemed relieved. Then she pointed to the empty space beside the woman. "Do you think Mom can still see us?" The question settled between them. Heavy. Familiar. Nathan looked toward the office window where twilight darkened the parking lot. "I don't know," he admitted. Lily nodded as if she understood, though she probably didn't. A few minutes later, while she colored at the front desk, Nathan opened a drawer searching for an invoice book. Instead, he found an old hospital visitor badge tucked beneath a stack of papers. August. 4 years ago. His fingers froze. Outside, lightning flashed beyond the mountains. Inside, Lily hummed quietly to herself, unaware. Nathan slid the badge back into the drawer and shut it. Across town, Claire Whitmore sat alone in a hotel suite overlooking Main Street. Her phone buzzed with messages from executives waiting for answers. She ignored every one of them. On the desk beside her rested a blank check she had never needed to use. For reasons she couldn't explain, she kept thinking about a mechanic who drove away from a fortune without looking back. And somewhere deeper than curiosity, a question had begun to take root. What kind of loss teaches a person that money cannot fix everything? Why would a man keep wearing a watch that had not worked in 4 years? The question followed Claire Whitmore through the next morning like a song she could not turn off. Sunlight spilled across Main Street, painting the brick storefronts gold while pickup trucks rolled past coffee shops and feed stores. Her meeting with local investors should have had her full attention. Instead, she found herself staring through the conference room window toward the mountains beyond town. Twice she caught herself writing the same name in the margin of her notebook. Nathan Brooks. By noon, she made a decision that surprised even her. She postponed her flight back to Seattle. Across town, Nathan was replacing brake pads on an old Chevrolet Silverado when Lily appeared beside him holding her yellow sketchbook. "Can we get ice cream after school?" she asked. "Depends on how many customers show up." "That means maybe. That means maybe." She grinned and skipped away. Nathan watched her disappear into the office. The smile faded when he noticed a black SUV pulling into the gravel lot. A woman stepped out wearing sunglasses and carrying a leather notebook. He recognized her instantly. "Claire. You tracked me down?" he asked. "That sounds more dramatic than it was." "Most things do when rich people say them." Her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Not quite an argument. For the first time, Nathan noticed she looked tired. The kind of tired that sleep did not fix. Claire held out a business card. "I came to apologize." Nathan looked at the card but did not take it. "For what?" "For assuming everybody has a price." The wind shifted across the lot. Somewhere down the road a train horn echoed through the valley. Nathan finally accepted the card. That small gesture should not have mattered. Yet Claire felt something loosen inside her chest. Then another change arrived. Lily burst through the office door and froze. "Who is she?" she whispered loudly. Claire laughed before she could stop herself. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck. "Lily, this is Claire." Lily studied her with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could manage. "You look sad." Nathan closed his eyes for a second. Claire blinked. "That is a strange thing to say." "Not really." Lily shrugged. "My dad looks sad sometimes, too." Silence settled over the lot. Not awkward. Just honest. Claire glanced toward Nathan. He was already looking away. Later that afternoon, after Claire left, Nathan slipped her business card into a drawer beside the old hospital badge. He meant to forget about both. Instead, he noticed something written on the back of the card. A phone number. Beneath it, 3 handwritten words. "In case someday." Nathan stared at the message longer than he should have. Meanwhile, Claire returned to her hotel and opened her notebook. Between project schedules and acquisition plans sat a photograph tucked into the inside cover. A younger version of herself stood beside an older man in an expensive suit. Her father. The edges of the picture were worn from being folded and unfolded for years. Claire looked at it for a long moment before closing the notebook. Then she picked up her phone and canceled another flight. Outside her window, evening shadows stretched across Bozeman. Neither she nor Nathan realized it yet, but both had made the same mistake. They believed they were staying in town for practical reasons. The truth was far more dangerous. They had become curious about each other's wounds. Why had Claire canceled 2 flights for a mechanic she barely knew? The question bothered her more than she cared to admit. 3 mornings later, she stood on a windswept piece of land just outside Bozeman where her company planned to build a small clean energy operations center. Survey flags fluttered across 20 acres of open ground. Contractors moved between trucks while coffee steamed from paper cups in the cool mountain air. Claire listened to presentations, reviewed schedules, and signed documents. Yet her attention kept drifting toward one problem. The local maintenance contractor she wanted most had not returned a single call. By lunchtime, she drove straight to Brooks Auto Repair. Nathan was underneath a ranch truck when her shadow appeared beside the lift. "You ignored my messages," she said. "I listened to them." "That is not the same thing." He slid out from beneath the truck and wiped his hands clean. Claire opened her notebook. "I want your shop to oversee maintenance for the entire Montana project." Nathan glanced at the figures on the page. The contract was worth more money than he would normally earn in years. For a brief second, something moved behind his eyes. Then it disappeared. "No." Claire stared at him. "You did not even read the details." "I read enough." "Why?" Nathan closed the notebook and handed it back. "Because I already have a job." The answer landed like a door shutting. Around them, tools clinked and engines rumbled. Claire felt irritation rise for the first time since arriving in town. "Do you always make life harder than it needs to be?" she asked. Nathan's expression changed. Not anger. Something older. "Sometimes easy things cost more than people realize." The words lingered after he walked away. Later that afternoon, Lily sat on a bench outside the garage coloring horses into her sketchbook when Claire found her alone. "Your dad is impossible," Claire said. Lily giggled. "Yeah. Sometimes. Does he ever say yes to anything?" Lily thought about it. "To me." Claire laughed despite herself. Then Lily turned a page and pointed to a drawing. It showed a lake beneath a dark sky. One corner held the number 817 written in yellow crayon. Claire's smile faded. "What is that?" Lily shrugged. "I do not know. Dad writes it on stuff sometimes." Before Claire could ask another question, Nathan appeared in the doorway. His eyes moved from the drawing to Claire. The warmth vanished from his face. "Lily." The single word was enough. Lily closed the sketchbook. On the drive back to town, Claire could not stop thinking about the number. Nor could she forget the look Nathan had given her. For the first time, she realized his refusal had nothing to do with pride. He was protecting something. Or hiding from it. That evening, while rain tapped against her hotel window, Claire opened her notebook and crossed out an entire page of business projections. Beneath it she wrote a question instead. What happened at 8:17? Across town, Nathan sat alone in the dark office of the garage. The old Timex watch rested on the desk beside him. Outside, headlights swept briefly across the parking lot and disappeared. He looked at the frozen hands of the watch, then at the unopened voicemail notification from Claire Whitmore. After a long moment, he deleted it without listening. The decision felt final. The ache that followed did not. Why would an 8-year-old draw a number she claimed not to understand? Claire carried that question into the weekend. Saturday morning arrived bright and cool, with sunlight washing across Bozeman's farmers' market. Families wandered between produce stands and handmade craft booths while country music drifted from a temporary stage near the courthouse lawn. Claire had come looking for distraction. Instead, she spotted a familiar yellow sketchbook. Lily sat on a hay bale eating a cinnamon roll almost as large as her face. Nathan stood nearby speaking with a rancher about truck repairs. For a moment, Claire considered turning around. Then Lily saw her. "Claire!" The little girl waved both arms. Heads turned. There was no escaping after that. Nathan glanced over. His expression suggested he would rather replace transmissions all day than have this conversation. "Small town," Claire said as she approached. "Apparently." Lily slid off the hay bale. "Come see my drawings." Before Nathan could object, she grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward a picnic table covered with sketches. Horses. Mountains. Wildflowers. Then Claire noticed one drawing folded separately beneath the others. The papers showed a hospital room. A woman lying in bed. A man sitting beside her. In the corner, the number appeared again. 8:17. Claire looked up. Nathan was already crossing the distance toward them. "Lily." His voice was gentle, but firm. The girl lowered her eyes. "Sorry." Nathan folded the drawing and slipped it back into the sketchbook. The market noise seemed farther away suddenly. Claire studied him. "She has seen that room before?" Nathan shook his head. "No, then how did she draw it?" He did not answer. That silence became its own answer. A few hours later, another shift arrived. A sudden gust swept across the market, sending loose papers tumbling from Claire's notebook. Nathan reacted first, catching several pages before they disappeared beneath parked trucks. One sheet landed face up between them. Neither had time to stop it. The page contained a photograph. Claire as a teenager. Beside her stood the same man from the worn picture inside her notebook. The older man's hand rested on her shoulder, but his smile never reached his eyes. Nathan handed the page back. "Your father?" Claire nodded. He built a company worth billions. You sound proud and angry at the same time. The observation caught her off guard. She slipped the photograph away. Maybe because both are true. Something shifted then. Not trust. Not yet. But the first crack in a wall. As evening settled over the valley, Nathan and Lily returned home. The old farmhouse sat beneath a sky streaked with orange and purple. While Lily brushed her teeth upstairs, Nathan opened a kitchen drawer searching for batteries. Instead, he found a folded piece of paper tucked behind a stack of bills. His face tightened. He recognized the handwriting immediately. It belonged to his late wife. He had not seen the note in years. For a long moment he simply stared at it without unfolding it. Upstairs, Lily's voice drifted down the hallway. "Daddy?" Nathan slipped the note into his pocket. "Yeah? Do you think people forget stuff because they want to?" Nathan looked toward the ceiling. The question landed harder than she could have known. Outside, the last light disappeared behind the mountains. Inside the quiet farmhouse, neither father nor daughter realized that the forgotten note had just become the most important piece of the mystery. What had Nathan's wife written in the note he could not bring himself to read? The question lingered through the next few days, even though no one else knew the note existed. Monday arrived beneath low gray clouds that hung over the Gallatin Valley. At Brooks Auto Repair, work came steadily. Ranch trucks. Family SUVs. A school bus with brake issues. Nathan buried himself in engines and invoices, hoping routine would quiet the noise in his head. It did not. The folded note remained in his shirt pocket. By noon, the edges were already worn. Every time he felt it there, he thought about opening it. Every time, he chose not to. Across town, Claire toured the construction site for her Montana project. Workers reviewed permits while survey crews marked utility lines. She should have been focused on deadlines. Instead, she found herself staring at a blank page inside her notebook. Finally, she wrote something she had never admitted before. "I do not know who I am when nobody needs my money." She stared at the sentence, then closed the notebook before anyone could see it. That afternoon, an unexpected change arrived. A severe thunderstorm rolled across the valley earlier than forecast. Wind bent cottonwood trees along the roads. Rain hammered rooftops and turned parking lots into shallow ponds. School dismissed early. When Nathan arrived to pick up Lily, he found her sitting alone beneath the front awning. Most children had already left. "Everything okay?" he asked. Lily nodded, but not convincingly. "My friend Emma said it is weird that I still talk about Mom." Nathan crouched beside her. Rain splashed against the pavement a few feet away. "What did you say?" Lily looked down at her sneakers. "Nothing. What did you want to say?" Her voice grew smaller. "I wanted to say I am scared people will forget her." The answer landed harder than he expected. For a moment he saw the folded note in his mind. The unopened words. The years spent avoiding certain memories while clinging to others. Something inside him shifted. Not enough to heal. Enough to hurt differently. Later that evening, another surprise waited. A knock echoed through the garage office just before closing. Claire stood in the doorway holding a cardboard bakery box. "Peace offering," she said. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "What is inside?" "Cherry pie." "You are bribing me with pie now?" "I am from Seattle. I am adapting." Against his better judgment, he laughed. The sound surprised both of them. While they shared pie at the old counter, Lily colored nearby. The atmosphere felt lighter than usual. Then Lily looked up from her sketchbook. "Claire?" "Yeah? Did your mom die too?" The room fell silent. Claire's fork stopped halfway to her plate. "No," she said after a moment. "She left." Nathan glanced toward her. The answer revealed more than she probably intended. Lily lowered her pencil. "Did it hurt?" Claire looked out the rain-streaked window. "Yeah. It did." Another wall cracked. Not around Nathan this time. Around her. When Claire finally left, she forgot her navy notebook on the counter. Nathan noticed it after her taillights disappeared down the road. He picked it up, intending to return it unopened. Then a loose sheet slipped from between the pages. It was not a business document. It was a handwritten letter addressed to someone named Dad. The first line was visible before Nathan could look away. "You taught me how to build companies, but never how to stay." Nathan froze. In his pocket rested a note he could not read. In his hand sat a letter Claire could not let go. For the first time, he wondered if their wounds were speaking the same language. Why had Claire written a letter she never intended to send? Nathan spent the next morning trying not to think about it. The Navy notebook sat untouched in a desk drawer at the garage, exactly where he had placed it after finding the loose page. He had not read beyond the first line. He told himself that mattered. Yet the words stayed with him anyway. "You taught me how to build companies, but never how to stay." Outside, a cold front had swept through overnight. Fresh snow dusted the peaks west of town while sunlight flashed across puddles left by the storm. The valley looked clean. Nathan did not feel the same. Around lunchtime, Claire returned for the notebook. She stepped into the office expecting a quick exchange. Instead, she found Lily sitting cross-legged on the floor with crayons scattered around her. "You came back," Lily said. "Looks that way." "Good." Claire smiled. "Why good?" Lily shrugged. "Dad talks more when you leave?" The answer caught both adults off guard. Nathan appeared from the service bay carrying the notebook. Their hands brushed briefly as he handed it over. A small thing. Yet neither ignored it. Then Nathan surprised himself. "There is a diner a mile down the road," he said. "Best coffee in town. If you have time." Claire studied him for a second. "Are you asking me to lunch?" "I am recommending coffee." "That sounds suspiciously close." For the first time, the distance between them eased without anyone forcing it. The diner smelled of fresh pie crust, bacon, and decades of conversation soaked into old wooden booths. Snowmelt dripped from gutters outside while trucks rolled past the front windows. They spoke about simple things at first. Montana winters. Bad coffee. Childhood memories. Then the conversation shifted. "Why did you stay?" Claire asked. Nathan looked up. "In Montana." He traced the rim of his mug. "Because it was home for her." Claire did not need to ask who he meant. The empty seat at that table seemed occupied by a memory either of them could see. A quiet settled between them. Not uncomfortable. Honest. Then Claire made a choice of her own. "My mother left when I was 11, she said. One day she was there. The next day she was not." Nathan listened without interrupting. "My father taught me to keep moving," she continued. "Achievement. Results. Growth. Anything except standing still long enough to feel abandoned." Something changed in his expression. He was no longer looking at a CEO. He was looking at a daughter. As the afternoon faded, another piece of the mystery surfaced. After leaving the diner, Nathan drove to a small cemetery on the edge of town. He thought he was alone. He was not. Claire had taken a different road back and spotted his truck parked beneath a row of bare cottonwoods. She did not approach. She remained near the entrance. From a distance she watched Nathan kneel beside a headstone. The wind tugged at his jacket while golden light stretched across the grass. Then she saw him remove the old Timex watch and place it gently against the stone. Her breath caught. A moment later he looked at his phone. The screen glowed briefly in the gathering dusk. 8:17 p.m. Claire finally understood one thing. The number was not random. It was a wound. The question that remained was far harder. What happened at 8:17 that Nathan still could not leave behind? What happened at 8:17 on the night Nathan's life changed forever? Claire carried the question with her for 3 days after seeing him at the cemetery. She never mentioned what she had witnessed. Yet something fundamental had shifted. The mystery no longer felt like curiosity. It felt like grief. Late Thursday afternoon, the first snow of the season drifted across Bozeman. Thin white flakes swirled beneath streetlights and settled on truck hoods parked along Main Street. At Brooks Auto Repair, business slowed as people hurried home before the roads became slick. Nathan was locking the front office when he noticed a familiar SUV pull into the lot. Claire stepped out holding 2 paper cups. "Coffee," she said. "I figured refusing it would be harder than refusing contracts." Nathan looked at the cups. Then at her. "You are getting better at Montana." They sat on the tailgate of his pickup while snow floated through the fading light. For a while neither spoke. The silence felt different now. Less guarded. More patient. Then Claire broke it. "I saw you at the cemetery." Nathan's shoulders stiffened. Not with anger. With exhaustion. The kind that comes from carrying something too long. "I figured you might have." The snow gathered lightly on the edges of the truck bed. Claire waited. She did not push. That mattered. Finally Nathan nodded toward the old Timex on his wrist. "The watch stopped the same night she died." Claire said nothing. He stared toward the distant mountains. "I never fixed it." Another piece of the wall came down. Not the whole truth. Just enough to let someone see inside. The next shift came from somewhere neither expected. The following evening, Lily's elementary school hosted a winter arts showcase in the gymnasium. Parents filled folding chairs while children's drawings covered display boards along the walls. The scent of popcorn drifted through the building. Laughter bounced off polished floors. Claire arrived near the end, unsure if she belonged there. Then Lily spotted her from across the room. "You came!" The little girl threw her arms around her waist. Several parents turned and smiled. Nathan watched from a distance. Something warm flickered across his face before he could hide it. A few minutes later, Lily proudly led them toward her display. Most of the drawings featured mountains, horses, and snowmen. Then one picture stopped both adults cold. It showed 3 people standing together beneath a bright yellow sky. Nathan. Lily. Claire. "Lily," Nathan said softly. "What is this?" She looked confused by the question. "A family picture." The gym seemed quieter suddenly. Claire glanced away first. Nathan looked at the drawing longer than he should have. Neither corrected her. Neither knew how. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Nathan finally unfolded the note from his late wife. The paper crackled from age. His hands trembled slightly as he read words that had waited 4 years to be heard. The message was short. Much shorter than he expected. If you are reading this, stop blaming yourself. Love her enough to keep living. Nathan lowered the page. The house stood silent around him. Wind brushed softly against the windows. Down the hallway, Lily slept peacefully. For the first time in years, he realized something unsettling. The person refusing to forgive him was not his wife. It was himself. And for the first time, he was no longer facing that truth alone. If Nathan had finally read the note, why did the ache feel stronger instead of lighter? The answer arrived sooner than he expected. The following week began with a phone call that changed everything. Claire stood in her temporary office overlooking the construction site when her board chairman's voice came through the speaker. The offer was official. A massive merger with a New York firm. Billions in future growth. National expansion. One condition remained. She needed to relocate within 60 days. When the call ended, the room felt strangely empty. A year ago she would have accepted before the conversation was finished. Now she stared through the window at the snow-covered valley and felt something she could not place. By afternoon, the news had reached her entire executive team. Congratulations arrived from every direction. None of them made her smile. Across town, Nathan spent the day replacing an engine in an aging ranch truck. The rhythm of work usually helped him think. Today it only made him aware of what he was avoiding. He had read his wife's note 6 times since Friday. The words had not changed. Stop blaming yourself. Love her enough to keep living. Yet one question remained unanswered. What did living actually mean now? The answer became harder to ignore when Claire appeared at the garage just before closing. She looked composed, professional. But Nathan had learned enough to recognize the difference between strength and armor. "Something happened," he said. Claire nodded. "I got offered the biggest opportunity of my career." "That sounds like good news." "It should." Snow drifted past the office window while silence stretched between them. Finally she added, "It is in New York." The words settled heavily in the room. Neither looked away. Neither pretended not to understand what they meant. Another change arrived that evening. Lily sat at the kitchen table finishing homework while Nathan washed dishes. "Daddy?" "Yeah? If somebody leaves, does it always mean they do not love you?" Water dripped from his hands into the sink. He turned toward her. "Why would you ask that?" Lily colored quietly for a few seconds. "Because Claire looks sad when she talks about leaving." Nathan felt the truth of it before he could answer. Children often notice things adults worked hard to hide. "No," he said. "Sometimes people leave because they think they have to." Lily nodded slowly. "That sounds lonely." The next afternoon, Claire made a decision of her own. Instead of preparing merger documents, she drove to the cemetery outside town. Wind swept across the open ground while clouds moved low over the mountains. She found the headstone she had seen from a distance days earlier. She did not step closer than necessary. She simply stood there reading the name. Then she noticed something tucked beneath a small stone beside the grave. A folded copy of a child's drawing. 3 figures beneath a bright yellow sky. Family. Claire closed her eyes. For the first time, she understood that Nathan's wound was not only about losing someone. It was about fearing that moving forward would somehow leave that person behind. That evening she returned to her hotel and opened the letter to her father. The unfinished one she had carried for years. Instead of adding another accusation, she wrote a single new sentence at the bottom. "I am tired of building a life that looks successful and feels empty." Then she set down the pen. Somewhere in town, Nathan sat alone on his porch watching snow gather across the fields beyond his farmhouse. The future was finally asking something from both of them. Not money. Not sacrifice. A choice. And neither of them knew yet whether they were brave enough to make it. The final choice arrived on a quiet Sunday evening. Claire's flight to New York was scheduled for the next morning. Her suitcase sat packed beside the hotel door. Contracts had been signed. Meetings had been arranged. The future she had spent years chasing was finally waiting for her. Yet, she could not stop looking at the snow-covered mountains beyond her window. Across town, Nathan stood in the garage office holding the old Timex watch. For 4 years he had treated it like a memorial. A punishment. A frozen reminder of a single moment. But after reading his wife's note again that afternoon, another thought refused to leave him. What if he had mistaken guilt for loyalty all this time? The realization followed him home. It followed him onto the porch. It followed him into the quiet where there was no work left to hide behind. The next morning arrived cold and clear. Fresh snow sparkled across open fields beneath a pale blue sky. Lily sat at the kitchen table finishing a piece of paper she had been working on for days. "Daddy," she said, holding it up. "I am done." Nathan took the drawing. 3 figures stood together beneath a bright yellow sky, just like before. But this time there was a 4th figure in the corner. A woman with lighter hair. Above her, Lily had written a single sentence in careful handwriting. "Mom is still part of the picture." Nathan looked at the page for a long time. Then he looked at his daughter. "You know," Lily said, swinging her legs beneath the chair, "I do not think Mom would want us to be lonely forever." The words came from a child. Yet they landed with the force of truth. Something finally gave way inside him. An hour later, Claire loaded her suitcase into the SUV. The engine started. The heater hummed softly against the winter air. She placed both hands on the steering wheel and stared through the windshield. Then her phone buzzed. A single message. "Nathan Brooks." Her heart stumbled. The text was simple. "Can you meet me before you leave?" 20 minutes later she found him standing near the small cemetery at the edge of town. Snow crunched beneath their boots as they walked. Neither spoke immediately. The wind moved gently through the bare cottonwoods overhead. Finally Nathan reached into his coat pocket and removed the old Timex watch. Claire recognized it instantly. The frozen hand still pointed to 8:17. "That was the time," he said quietly. "The hospital called. I was working late at the garage. I told myself I was earning money for treatments. For bills. For another chance." His voice broke for the first time. "When the call came, I was not there." Claire stepped closer. Nathan looked toward the headstone. "For 4 years I believed that if I had made a different choice, she would still be alive." The winter air settled around them. Then he unfolded the note from his wife and handed it to Claire. She read the short message and looked up. Tears filled her eyes. Not because of what the note said. Because of what it meant. Nathan had finally listened. Slowly, he turned the crown on the side of the watch. A faint click sounded in the quiet morning. Then another. The second hand moved. For the first time in 4 years, the watch began to run. Nathan smiled through tears. Not because the past had changed. Because it no longer owned him. Claire reached for his hand. This time he did not pull away. Nearby, Lily placed her drawing against the headstone, where the bright yellow sky glowed against the snow. The watch no longer represented guilt. The drawing no longer represented loss. They had become something else. Proof that love could survive change. Proof that memory and hope could exist together. As the winter sun climbed higher above the mountains, 3 lives moved forward at last, carrying the past with them, but no longer trapped inside it.